Hello and good morning from me, Mike Smith, ECA Technical Director. Today is the sixth and the final presentation in our current series of Technical Tuesday webinars, which is a shame because I hope you've enjoyed them as much as we have. We put them together and it only seems like yesterday that we decided to create them and put them out during this rather difficult period. Today we've got Gary Parker, who's our presenter, and the topic is the role of the prosumer. Might be a term that you haven't come across, and actually I'm sure that today won't be the last time you hear it. I think it's a subject that will come to the fore. To explain all that, I'll pass you across to Gary, and just after I remind you that the questions are very welcome. Use the question pane, write your question down. We may answer as we go along, or if we think necessary, we'll interrupt Gary, or we'll wait to the end where we should have some time for some Q&A as normal. Luke, Shahid and myself will be in the background, just looking at questions coming in, etc. So I think without further ado, I will pass you across to Gary. Gary, good morning.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yes.
Sun is shining. Yeah, sun is shining. We're all good today. We're all good.
Excellent.
Morning, everybody else. Hope you're all good and well, and we're starting to see some green shoots of recovery. And today shall hopefully give us a little bit of good news. And we're going to talk about the role of the prosumer electrical installations. And as Mike alluded to, it might be something that you've never heard of, never seen. It might be something that you're a little bit familiar with. But we'll go through it nonetheless, and we'll start talking about the idea of a prosumer electrical installation, and we'll cover the changing environment of the electrical contractor a little bit, and we'll cover off what is a prosumer. And when we've covered that, we'll look at the types of prosumer installations, including the different modes. More importantly, the opportunities for ECA members. This is a great set of opportunities for us, and we can have some Q&As at the end. But as Mike says, there's a chat facility on this webinar. If you just open it up, put your comment in there, myself or the guys in the background will hopefully get a reply to you. And at the end of this, we'll put the webinar up on the ECA YouTube page as well. Bit of a shameless plug there, because some members join in this and some non-members. If you're not a member, ECA has got some great benefits, some very wonderful and incredibly handsome technical helpline people here. And over the last 6 weeks or so, the business and commercial contract and legal advice has been fantastic for our members. And we've also got a range of other benefits, including really good discounts on the BSI package and access to things like ERAMs. Shameless plug at the start. Now, as I say, we've got some good news, hopefully. After several weeks of being in lockdown and in a very strange world, we're about due some good news. So the following slides will offer a bit of a glimpse at the future, what it might hold, what it could hold, and what it probably will hold, and possibly the biggest change the electrical industry has seen for a decade. And it's going to affect us all at some point down the line. Some of it is far way off. Some of it is probably a little bit closer than you think. Now, regardless of COVID and regardless of the situation of the last couple of months, the electrical industry has and will continue to change. And my colleague Luke took this photo, and it's more pertinent now than ever. When doing nothing costs the earth, subscribing to change is surprisingly good value. Who'd have thought 2 months ago, 3 months ago, businesses would shut, trains would stop, and schools would close? It shows we can do anything we want if we need to and if we have to. And the whole idea of a prosumer installation is all about driving change, and it's all hinted around the global climate change acceptance. And most people do accept it, unless you're a bleach-wielding president. Most people are aware now that climate change is there. And the UK has a net zero carbon target for the Climate Change Act for 2050, which is it seems a long way off. It does seem a long way off, 30 years, but it'll come around pretty quickly. That, along with energy efficiency legislation, is driving change, is driving people to look at new and innovative technologies, as well as also energy supply issues. It's not as clean or as crisp as it used to be. If anybody is interested, there's a really good little website called GridWatch, where you can go on and look at the different methods that the National Grid have to get their energy. And solar PV, for instance, in the last few years has jumped up, overtook coal in almost all cases. And the rapid advance of technology. And we're going to cover all of these areas off today, but the technology is interesting, because even a simple installation, a simple electrical installation, is not simple anymore. It used to be just lights and sockets, whereas now we've got heat pumps, air and ground source, we've got combined heat and power units, we've got biomass boilers, electric vehicles, solar thermal, solar PV systems, better and higher efficient building fabric. And a simple home is no longer just lights and sockets. And even the smart metering, which we will come back to a little bit later, that acts as the key for everything else. Now, there's a nice common thread here. A lot of this, maybe building fabric aside, a lot of this requires an electrical person to work on, and that will be a returning theme throughout this little talk. So, prosumer, what is it and why? Now, this is a catchy title. The IEC 60364-8-2 international standard came out in 2018, and this is an international standard for prosumer electrical installations, and it may not be, probably will be, incorporated into future editions of 7671. So it's not a far off distant standard. It will come into our world, and it will be likely the biggest change in the last few decades. And it introduces some new technology and new terminology. And it talks about prosumers and prosumer electrical installations, PEI. And part of the idea is to enhance the end user experience, but also to push the decentralization of energy and come away from a coal-fired power station somewhere supplying a substation supplying a street. So I suppose the big question is, what is a prosumer? In my house, I am a consumer. I consume electricity and single malt Scotch whisky if I get a chance. I use energy. I don't create anything. Whereas some of you people might be listening and thinking, hang on, I've got a solar PV system. We did a similar talk like this a few months ago, and there was a guy sat at the back of the room looking ever so happy with himself because he had a solar PV system fitted years back when it was 48p or whatever the tariff was. And that's gone up, and now he keeps getting checks through the post, and it's wonderful. A prosumer is somebody who both consumes and produces electricity, be it by PV, turbines, or some other methods. And this is the start of a new and a clever installation. Again, all bits that relate to electrical work, all bits that relate to us. And one of the key elements that we mentioned earlier was a smart meter. And a smart meter is the start of the smart, I suppose. It might have had a bit of bad reputation in the past, a bit of a negative perception, but a smart meter can be fantastic. It can be the linchpin, the hinge pin for the safer, smarter and more stable grid going forward. It can facilitate load management, and we need it to have robust protocols, of course. But a building, and this is a returning theme, a building isn't just sockets and lights. It will be far more. It will be far bigger, and we'll have some small examples on here, but it can also grow out to being larger installations. So a typical home is your sockets and light, whereas a smart home, smart meter home area network, a SMAHAN, has a smart meter, has a consumer access device, a CAD, or an in-home display, something to show what the smart meter is doing. And it has some form of generation, PV panel, for instance. That is a smart home. And these are new bits. You might be wiring a property, you might put some sockets and lights and a shower and a cooker in, and then a PV system, and then an element of smart in-home displays. Or you could be asked to do something like this, which is a consumer home area network. A lot more involved, a lot more work, and obviously a higher price. Whereas typical lights and sockets are relatively cheap and functional. These are getting on for being more higher end and more desirable things, Internet of Things, generation, smart home management systems, heat pumps, energy storage. We'll definitely touch on energy storage later. Electric vehicles, we're absolutely going to touch on that later as well. This is all more stuff that we do, that we fit, that we work on, that we manage, we control. And these are our work. This is our installation. This is what we're doing. And we should be doing more of it. And when we're talking about more, when we're talking about EVs, we're talking about increased electrification. 135 types of EVs, 273,000 registered EVs out there now. These are a few weeks old, so it's probably more. 8,800 registered electric vans out there, and 31,000 charging points. This is all our work. This is what we do. Heat pumps, electric underfloor heating, electric boilers, electric radiators. And you probably sat there thinking, great, yeah, but I'm going to have a gas boiler, I'm going to have a combi boiler, I'm going to have something else. We mentioned 2050, 30 years. 30 years we've got to wait for that. New homes from 2025 won't have a gas supply. So an electric boiler, air source heat pumps, something else is going to be needed in 5 years. Not that far, getting closer. And we've mentioned EVs, and we talk about how great they are and how they're getting better and how you can get further range on them and you can do more with them. One of the elements that we've talked about a little bit was electric energy storage, because solar panels run during the day. They don't do an awful lot at night. So what if we had energy storage systems? What if we had a battery? Well, if you've got an electric vehicle, you kind of already have. And a concept of vehicle to grid technology is great. This is using the electric vehicle to both charge and supply the infrastructure, the grid. And you can have a separate energy storage system here. And this would help us smooth the curve. And I'm sure you've heard this phrase time and time again. We've all become experts in smoothing the curve. And we'll show you what that means in a second. Recently at home, I had a plumber come round to look at my boiler, and he mentioned he was doing an electrical energy storage course. And he said if I was interested, I could have a word with him and he could put some energy storage in my property. He's a plumber. This is not his world, this is our world. This is what we should be doing. And when we talk about smoothing the curve and using the electric vehicle, this is what we're looking at. Most buildings have got a morning and a peak evening demand. Whereas if we can use the EV, a battery on wheels, to store the energy and charge up during the day and then spread the energy about at night, it drops that curve. And we're all sick of curves at the moment, but this idea is absolutely real, and there's so much funding going on in the world for this. Millions and millions of pounds and dollars and euros have been invested in this, and vehicle to grid is an absolute great way of getting involved. And again, it's an electrical cable. It's an electrical supply. That's all it is, electrical supply. It's our world. This is what we're doing. This is what we need to be involved in. And technically, as a Yorkshireman, it's free fuel. I like free fuel. I like anything for free. If I can get free fuel for my car from the sun, wonderful. Now, we've all been locked in and we've all been allowed to do one exercise a day, and we've all gone out and we've all noticed that the roads are quieter and the air is cleaner and the air is fresher. It has made a difference. The vehicles on the road are less. There's children playing in the streets. It's a nicer environment. It's a horrible way of being brought about, but this type of environment can continue post-COVID in an electrical world. Now, all this is great, and we can talk about the ideas and the wherefores, but how does it physically bolt together? How does it look? And it's actually not that difficult. If you picture this as an installation, we have local distribution within the building, that property, whatever it may be. We have public supply and an origin. And we've got circuits, appliances, motors, heating, lighting, the standard thing. These are all classed as elements of local consumption. Then we've got local generation, PV, wind, anything else that we can tag on. And this is all local generation into your building, into your property. And then electrical energy storage systems, batteries, and electric vehicles, which are a form of energy storage system, and then electrical energy management systems and signals controlling all that to make our installation a prosumer installation and an efficient installation and a very, very low cost installation. And if you want to see another image as to how it would actually look, this is the property. These are your loads, and there's your energy meters going both ways, supplying and consuming. You've got a public supply, you've got a local generation, and a battery, a storage system. So these are real installations that we can do today, now, and also in the future, bearing in mind the 2050 and the 2025 gas stopping for new builds. This is all absolutely in our territory and absolutely real. So prosumer, type of installation that produces and consumes energy. There's different types of prosumer installations and different ways that you can install them and work with them. And probably the simplest one is the individual. This is the system that we saw earlier. So it's a type of installation with one supply, one, possibly two elements of producing, and possibly an energy storage system, optional if you want it. Something that both produces and supplies, a prosumer electrical installation. But then you can get a little bit more complex, just a little bit. You can have a collective prosumer installation, so either flats, houses, a cooperative of buildings that have an electrical supply coming in. And they also have the ability to both produce and consume electricity and supply back to the grid. So collective with individual generation and storage systems. But then we've also got a collective generation, collective prosumer installation with a sole and a common generation and storage system. So again, all prosumer installations, different types, individual, collective with individual generation, and collective with a group energy generation and storage system. They're great, absolutely fantastic. And these are happening today, they're happening tomorrow, they'll be happening next year. Then when you look at each individual type of prosumer, you've got to consider the different ways they operate. Now, the term that is used is modes, but it's just different ways a prosumer installation can operate. My house, my home, is a consumer. I don't have anything clever in my property. We are in a direct feed-in mode, if we were going to use that analogy for my building. I just consume, whereas a prosumer installation can consume and provide. In a direct feed-in mode, prosumer installation is supplied by the grid, and we get a little bit of energy storage going back and forth, but it's using the energy from the grid. A reverse feed-in mode is familiar to people who've got solar PV and supply it back to the grid and get several pence per hour for that. It uses the local energy storage and the generation local to the building to supply energy back to the grid. So that's a reverse feed-in mode. Now, a prosumer installation can be very clever, and it can work in what's called island mode. And this is where the prosumer is disconnected from the grid. It is using just its own supply. It is using just what it has and what it generates itself, and almost certainly at a cost of nothing. It is using its own energy that it creates and develops on its own land and uses it in its own way for free. Great option, a great option. Now, we've mentioned a little bit about opportunities, so we're going to look at those a little bit further. Apprenticeships today are very different from yesterday. If anybody's of a certain age, we remember when, sadly, we had to strip motors in an apprenticeship. We tend not to do that so much nowadays. We probably won't be doing it tomorrow, because apprenticeships tomorrow will be different again, and this will be becoming a common thread for electrical contractors and electrical apprentices. And any business looking to develop and grow would certainly have to consider prosumer installations. If you're in charge of a business and you want to sell it, pass it on, pass it off to your children over the next 20 years, prosumer installations have to be considered. You have to be looking at something. And I say over the next 20 years. At the start, we looked at something that's 30 years off a long way. We looked at gas being banned in 2025. So these are still a fair way off, but actually this is happening now. And energy supplier called Octopus Energy this year has been paying its customers to use electricity. Okay, it was between 2 and 3 a.m., but Octopus had more energy than they could use. They paid you to use it, not the other way around. How wonderful is that? You actually get paid to use energy, to charge your electric vehicle overnight, to charge your energy storage system. You are getting not only free fuel, but you're getting it and getting money for it. Wonderful, wonderful opportunities. Again, all for us. So I suppose the key points of a prosumer is they do address user requirements. They can absolutely help to reduce energy costs. They can play an active part in generation and energy use in that local environment. And they can move forward with a decentralising of energy and also reduce carbon footprint from individuals and the UK as a whole, or groups or communities. And also creating a robust and solid infrastructure for EVs. Hundreds of thousands of EVs, and they are growing. Every single one of these, every single element of this is an electrical thing. It's for us, not for other trades. And now is the time for ECA members to take that up and get involved in that area of work. Yes, the industry is understaffed and underskilled, but these are things that we can work and we can develop. And early adopters will absolutely reap the benefits. And as I say, apprenticeships will change. They will vary. They will develop all the time, as will electricians' roles. We don't just put cables in now for lights and sockets. We also put cables in for data, for power over Ethernet, for the changing world elements of things. We've got to develop our businesses too. And if you think businesses can just tick on and carry on as normal, one thing we don't want to do is let them stagnate, because other businesses also let themselves stagnate too. And things that are true today might not be true tomorrow. Couldn't even think of renting a VHS or a DVD anymore. So hopefully all of this element here is some good news, gives us a little bit of something to look forward to moving down the line. But remember, at the moment, we need to keep safe, keep our distancing 2 meters apart. It also is worth keeping it 2 meters apart sideways as well, even when we come out of a post-COVID world, and hopefully the schools go back on the 1st of June. Hopefully we enjoyed that, and hopefully it was useful, and it's given us some nice things to look forward to and some nice areas to continue to work in. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for listening to the past Technical Tuesday talks that we've got. And if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll try our best to answer them for you.
Thank you, Gary. Hopefully everybody can see the potential for the future. That was very interesting, and interesting from my perspective. Was that a little plea from you, Gary, about homeschooling and the 1st of June, was it?
Was that subtle there? We had a survey from the school saying, do you want the children to go back? That was very quickly answered.
Excellent. Okay, Luke, is there anything that you want to pick up, or Shahid, that have been going on in the background, or do you want to make any points anywhere?
Yeah, I was just going to say we had a question from Gordon Routledge. I think I pronounced that correctly. He asked if there were any moves to standardise communication between the different installation elements, e.g. EV chargers have apps, heating controls, lighting, etc. I answered him in the comments just saying that at the moment it is quite proprietary, but there are some common protocols being used, Zigbee communications, etc. But as these technologies develop further going forward, it's hoped that these will begin to standardise, and that is an aspect that different manufacturers are exploring. Obviously, a lot of them are offering this nascent technologies, and they like to have them all closed group for themselves so that people buy the similar products from their own offerings. But for this to really happen and to really take off, there does need to be common acceptance of these things to interact. You do have an element of this with the smart homes, where you've got the Apple Home Kits and the Google Home stuff, and via different dongles and I can't think of the word. Shahid, what's the word I'm looking for?
I think you mean gateways.
Gateway.
Yeah,
that's it. By the use of different gateways, you can share communication across different apps. So that is one way to do it, although obviously you don't want so many dongles and gateways hanging off the back of your router. But yeah, there are ways for this to happen. Sorry,
yeah, the only trouble with gateways is it slows the speed of communication down. However, for building applications, in terms of what we're talking about, that isn't such a problem. I'd say that the guy's name's Routledge rather than Routledge, but each to their own.
Fair enough. Thanks for clarifying that. And yes, no, these Shahid's great there. It does slow the speed down on the communications, but yeah, it's starting to come together. Another question that came through, or a statement from Gordon, was saying that more power equals less plumbers. Yeah, that can be the case if it's a solely electrical installation, but in the case of many heat pumps, you've still got wet heating systems attached, so it's a bit of a combination of the two trades there.
But they still need power supplies, though, don't they? These things, they still need power supplies. They'll still need 230 services to everything. So it's absolutely a massive growth area. And most of the samples I came up with on this chat today were relatively small scale installations, but you can absolutely see that the cost of a rewire of a 3-bedroom semi with just lights and sockets compared to the cost of a prosumer installation, it's aspirational for a lot of clients, but it's a big job. It's a big job, and it's absolutely our work. So more stuff for us, definitely.
Oh, exactly. It's an ever expanding field out there for the electrician, the electrotechnical engineer, and quite importantly, when we've demonstrated this, the prosumer and various aspects involved, the next generation apprentices coming through and school leavers, etc., you can see a real spark in their eyes when they see how exciting this technology can be. I think that's
excellent turn of phrase there, Luke.
But I think that's one thing our industry overlooks. We don't do ourselves the world of service when we're showcasing just how far and vast the technologies that we put out can be. And it's really exciting. It's not just plugs and sockets. It's not just the cables of old. There's so much exciting technology, and that's really engaging with the next generation who are really switched on for climate change and see this as being a very good solution.
Okay, guys, from contractor looking at this new exciting world, okay, lots of products up there, lots of systems out there. How do I get trained into using these? How do I get accredited?
I think a lot of the manufacturer-led training courses are really good for this sort of stuff. There is, of course, some really good guidance out there from the IET for things like the PoE element and the smart home side of things. The EV training courses and OLEV grants are absolutely running at the moment. There's many ways you can get good information, and over the last 6 weeks, both Shahid and Luke have also covered several of these topics. So a lot of it is self-development, self-training, but there's certainly City and Guilds EAL qualifications out there that help with this. I think a lot of the time it's contacting your local training provider as well.
And if the guys out there get a little bit confused, etc., who should they contact? Luke,
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, say that again, Mike.
Luke, Gary, are you available to help those guys out there, members that want a bit of guidance of where to go and what to look at?
Yes,
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, we're trying. Obviously, part of the role of ECA is to horizon scan what's coming through, and yeah, anyone's got any queries on this or would like help and direction, please contact us, and yeah, we'll give you a good steer on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, there's a question from Tim. I'm wondering if that's Tim O'Connor. If it is, hi Tim. Is MCS still relevant or required?
MCS is still yeah, it's rebranded itself in the last year, and it is being required for the Smart Export Guarantee for solar. But it's not the only certification scheme out there. There's also one called Certify, and offers a similar level as MCS. So yeah, it's still out there. It's not required in every situation, but it does demonstrate to the end user that the installer yeah, has a robust management procedure and the training required. Do you have anything on that, Gary?
No, the MCS element is still key for a lot of these technologies, the generation side of things. Certainly the internal elements at the moment it isn't pertinent for, but the energy storage systems it could be. But a lot of this you can pick up from just various different industry guidance. Some of those images we had on the screen earlier were from a Beamer guide, which is very good. ECA have got a lot of guides on this, which are fantastic and freely accessible to members. So you can start getting a little bit of information on this now, and possibly in the next few months, years, more will come out with various different iterations of 7671 if Prosumer Installations come into that. So there's going to be a lot of information out there, a lot of guidance, and to be honest, so much of this is going to be ran via the client. If they want something, if they want a smart building, if they want these clever technologies put in, it's great way of pushing the industry because it's something that they desire, and then you can go off and find the information, the manufacturers, generic information, ours, IET. There's plenty of information out there. We're at the start of a really exciting time, I think.
Excellent. We've got another question here from Tim. I think it's probably Tim Aldershot, asking, will Power over Ethernet have the potential to combine these systems? Yeah, I think personally, I think it does. It then saves the conversion from DC to AC and then back to DC. If any of you watched last week's presentation, we talked about PoE and how many of the end devices that we use in our day-to-day lives all function on DC. So yeah, PoE can certainly offer the potential for reducing the losses and for combining lots of these systems, and also having the robust communication between the two. Yeah.
And Luke, have you been doing anything with the energy storage system guide of late with the IET?
Yes, there's been a number of us involved in this, including Tim. And yeah, we're in the final stages of the current iteration of the battery, the electrical energy storage system, batteries, the installation guide for installers. So we're hoping this should be out for DPC possibly at the back end of the summer, but we will keep members posted on that. It's a very useful guide, and a lot of time and energy has gone into it. And yeah, this obviously helps with the prosumer installations and yeah, the furtherment of these technologies.
Okay, have we got any other questions outstanding there?
Oh, there's one again about combined heating and power units still be okay after 2025. The government target was to stop all gas supplies to new build installations post 2025. So your existing stuff will be fine, but anything built or designed after that stage wouldn't have a gas supply to it. So
would they be looking at alternative gas types and hydrogen presumably for existing systems going forward, Gary?
Possibly conversions over, yeah, or ideally from our side of things, electric heating. It's developed so much in the last few years with things like Lot 20 helping push the equipment forward and the controls of it. Electric heating is far more cost effective now and beneficial than it used to be, and with the amount of solar and renewable energy generated, the odds are it's going to become cheaper too. The GridWatch website I mentioned at the start shows you a list of different supply characteristics, so whether it's coming from nuclear or coal or solar. It's gone right up over the last few years. So it's really it's a really exciting and great time to be in the electrical industry. And just picking up on something Luke there said about apprentices are seeing this as being something innovative and something exciting. It really is. It's a great potential area of growth over the next few years and over the next 20 years as well.
Yeah, I think in terms of CHP, it also depends on the size of the unit. Obviously, there's many CHPs going into industrial units because the grid isn't very stable. So, you know, you're getting 15, 30 megawatt type CHPs, which obviously isn't a quick conversion over to electric because the grid can't stand it. So there needs to be various approaches to this, doesn't there?
There needs to be a phased approach, but certainly the 2025 for new build homes will mean there's going to have to be something else we're looking at, and electrical heating is far more efficient than it used to be. So it's certainly a way of developing it, and it's a new opportunity for members to get out there and do some work.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got time for one more. Somebody's put a question in here. For battery installations, who would provide the accreditation for installing these? For other parts of these prosumer installations, do you know of any other possible accreditations we will require?
I think Luke's been working with some of the certification bodies for energy storage systems. Is that right, Luke, or is that wrong?
Yeah, no, Certify, who I mentioned earlier, they started in 2015 as a certification body for electrical energy storage systems. So yeah, they're probably the leaders in the UK in accreditation for that. I do believe MCS are also looking at this, potentially REA, Renewable Energy Association, as well. So yeah, Certified for definite, and the others I think is work in progress. Actually, I'm certain the MCS is working on it because that was in parallel with the IET guide, which is coming out. So I think that's going to be reflecting the information that's contained within that as well. So yeah, that will help to give the end user confidence and help to bolster the market for that.
I think a lot of the time you can do a very quick Google search on these sort of things and find a local training provider near you for a one-day energy storage course or a one-day POE course. These are certainly ways that you can get started in this field, and hopefully in the not too distant future we'll be able to get out and do these things. But I imagine there'll be plenty of webinars and online elements for this sort of new technology.
Yes, certainly lots of manufacturers are offering good training on this. I just put a link in as well into the Q&A panel. The whole idea of the prosumer fits well with a current campaign that's going on from Europon, which is the Skills for Climate campaign, and this is to show government that we need to enhance the training and the offerings out there to enable us to hit net carbon zero for 2050. And a lot of this revolves around the prosumer aspect. So there's a link for anyone interested in the Q&A panel there.
Okay, I think that just about brings us up to time. So I'll maybe have a minute for any last wrap-ups. In terms of new questions, will you send out reminders to members for the release date of the IET guide you are speaking of?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
No, so I was going to say if you get the source e-magazine, it will be sent out there every fortnight, and also if you have a look on ECA Today, if you Google that, we've got an electronic version of the magazine. It will be listed in there as well. We'll send out information. If you're not getting that information already, have a word with your RM. They should be able to help you set your preferences up so you're getting information. But yeah, we send out lots and lots of information, possibly too much at times, which I appreciate can be a little bit info overload. But if you get the source, it should be in there.
Okay, and we've got one last question that we can quickly deal with. That's from Tim again. Can a battery be certified with an ECA certificate?
The electrical installation element of it can. Yeah, I don't know if there's any specific requirements from the power walls or the lights out that need something else, but an electrical installation is an electrical installation at the end of the day. So if you're using 230, 400 volt feeds, an ECA test certificate is adequate for that.
I would just add a little caveat on that it's important for installers when they're having the conversations with the end users to be able to give the end user the right information. So just to manage their expectations, we've seen instances in the past where unscrupulous installers have sold tiny systems which really weren't of any use, even some lead acid systems, and given no guidance to customers. The customers thought they'd be able to run off grid. So do manage your clients' expectations with how long they can expect to be assisted by the battery for. And also, yeah, the power hungry equipment, ovens, etc., will drain them really rapidly, whereas just running your TV and your LED lights, they'll work for tens of hours. So yeah, it is important to have those conversations.
Yeah, it's worth clarifying, this isn't a 9 volt battery or a car battery. These are proper made to measure systems that work with your building and work with your loads. And as Luke says, if it's part of the MCS requirements with PV to have a good conversation beforehand and manage expectations, because what you don't want to do is sully any potential that you've got with your clients by saying you can run off grid and never have to worry about things ever again. And if you supply a car battery, it's simply not going to work.
Excellent, thanks guys. I think that's all we've got time for today. Thank you for participating today, everybody, and the whole of the series that we've done. We've really enjoyed it. I hope you have as well. Watch out for more technical discussions. We've got some planned for your regions if you're members, and they're being planned at this moment in time with your regional managers, so they'll be in touch. Nationally, we'll be putting on some more webinars with our associated commercial associates. So watch out for those. Likely to be on a different day and a different time as we're all getting back to work now. So that's it from me. Thanks again. More importantly, keep safe, keep well, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you, and thank you from the guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.